So good evening. Yesterday we started the naive-Bayes classifier and we had stopped uh, at this slide of advantages of naive-Bayes classifier. We have already seen that naive-Bayes classifier is dependent on two things. One is the Bayes theorem and second thing is the naive assumption. We saw the mathematics regarding that yesterday itself, naive assumption as well as the Bayes theorem. So we saw this and then we also solved this numerical. We saw that given this condition of uh, if we have these kind of values that are available on the right hand side, we did the prediction regarding the rainy, cool, high and humidity with the windy day. So all these things were used uh, to get the answer. So we solved this numerical and we got that play golf is equal to no based on the mathematics that we solved. So we stopped at this point. We will be discussing the advantages now. So obviously it is simple and easy to understand. There are only two things that we need to take care of. Naive assumption is that all the independent variables should be there, and then Bayes theorem, you know the formula. So these are two conditions. There is no hyperparameter tuning in this. It's all mathematics. You have to understand. I mean, you have to get the values of these likelihood values and the what we say. Uh, the starting point is called yeah, prior probabilities. Okay, yeah, prior probabilities and the likelihoods. So if you have these two things, then you can get the answer, you can solve it, but no hyperparameter is required. It is scalable. Obviously if we add one or two more observations in that sheet, we can update our tables accordingly, and it can be used for real-time classifications. Obviously we solved the problem for playing the golf, and then it is suitable for multi-class classification. So we did not do any kind of one versus rest, right? And we can directly use it for multiple classes. Then obviously you will have to solve it for different classes. Right now we have solved for probability of yes and no, but in case there are multiple classes, so this yes no will be class 1 2 3, and you have to solve it thrice, and whichever number will be the greatest, that will win, and that will be the prediction, that class will be the prediction. So there are some problems also. First problem is zero frequency problem. In case I mean, it is already given here. So outlook equal to overcast with a no is equal to 0 according to that table we saw earlier. In case the probability is 0, then what to do? So the question here is that if an individual feature value for a particular class label is missing, and you can see, we can confirm outlook equal to overcast and a no. Let's see here, outlook equal to overcast and a no. So we have four overcast here. This is a overcast, it's a yes. Second overcast, it's a yes. Third and fourth, it's a yes. So if question is asked that overcast condition is a no, then what to do? Then you cannot do anything based on the current learning that we have done. So let's look into this case, how to handle this kind of a thing when we don't have that kind of scenario in our data. So to handle this problem, we will apply the smoothing technique, and smoothing techniques are we will be discussing two. We will be implementing one out of it, but we have this Laplace smoothing correction and Lidstone smoothing. So let's look into this, how this works. So smoothing is a technique that handles the problem of zero probability in naive Bayes. Obviously if you don't have that kind of a case in the initial data set, then probability will be zero according to the likelihood. But then how to solve it? Smoothing is the answer. So in smoothing, what we have to do is we have to add this alpha in the numerator and add alpha into number of features in the denominator. So this alpha is being used. Now what is this alpha? Alpha is the smoothing parameter, and here k is the number of features. Let's say that there were 5 features, so alpha into 5 will be done in the denominator and it will be added. So in the numerator it was plus alpha only, and it and this alpha cannot be greater than 1. Why? Because if alpha is greater than 1, then the higher probability mass will be 0. It will give higher probability mass to 0 frequency counts. So 0 will be 0 frequency counts will be given higher probability mass. It will be not good for our data set. So we can use only two kind of values, alpha equal to 1. If we put 1 in this data in this formula, then this 0 probability condition will be solved easily, because we are giving then 1, at least one value in the numerator. 0 plus 1 will be at least 1 in the numerator. And if alpha is less than 1, maybe 0.5, so that kind of setting is called Lidstone smoothing. And we will be looking into this in the numerical. So there is one more condition, one more problem, numerical underflow. It means that when we are doing this kind of a setting, that we are multiplying, we are doing the product of multiple probabilities. Now we all know that probability value lies between 0 and 1, so it will be 0 point something, right? And if we do the multiplication of many values, let's say the k is very large, let's say k is equal to maybe 100. So when you multiply 100 times 0 point something, the product will be very small and it will be approximately 0. So this is the condition that is called numerical underflow. Now how to solve this? In to solve this, we have added this log value here. So in order to solve this problem, we compute the log likelihood. So instead of just calculating the likelihood, we are calculating the log likelihood, in which we are I mean, when we are doing this log, then we have to do the summation. So we all know that for a product, when log is applied, all the values are added with each other, right? So if, let's say, there was multiplication of m into n, but if I put log of mn, it will be log m plus log n. So that's the logic behind this. So we are just applying the log function with the with this function, and that product will be becoming summation. So convert the product to sum. So this is the updated formula. We are getting the log likelihood function of this. Uh, I mean, the problem will be solved. The numerical underflow problem will be solved by using the log. So then let's look into this example. Earlier, we have already seen the example of playing golf or not, but now let's see on the text that how we will handle this thing. So consider that you have a training data set as shown on the right hand side. You have multiple sentences. We will say that these are multiple documents, document 1, document 2, document 3. So let's say that there are 5 documents in this. So consider the training data set, where in the each training document we have labeled it as sports category or the politics category. So we have these two categories here for each document. I am saying this document because I mean, we will be solving this as a document 2, document 3. So this will be solved as multiple documents, because these are the different classes on the right hand side. That a great game is something related to sports. The election was over, was, I mean, it is one of the politics statement. So you using the name based classifier classify the document a very close game. So you have to classify this statement a very close game, which is not available here in the data set. But then you have to do some naive based classification, and you have to solve it by calculating the probability of each and every sentence and every class. So we have to look into it. So now pre-processing, what it is called, convert the lowercase, no stop word removal, no stemming. So this is kind of the pre-processing that we assume. So let's look into this, how to solve it. Now, if you check the prior probability of sports is 3 by 5, because three of the documents here are from the sports category and two are from the politics. So my initial prior probability will be, for sports it is 3 by 5, politics it is 2 by 5. And now if you want to calculate the likelihood probabilities, first you have to look into the number of features. The number of features are 14. So if you take care of all the words, if you I mean, if you convert it into lowercase and everything, there are total 14 unique words. Considering this a is written here as a small case, and previously we have seen that there is a in small case also and large case also. So we have considered both of them as a same character because we are doing some lowercasing. So there are total 14 unique words. All of them are in front of you. So this is my number of features, 14. And this is my prior probability, 3 by 5 and 2 by 5. Now, if you make the table out of it, you will have to take care of all the documents. So these are the features. And then we are looking at the sports. So out of these sentences, obviously this document one, the first sentence, third and fourth sentence. So these are sports sentences, the first, the third and the fourth. So accordingly, it has been written here D1, D3 and D4. So these are the three documents in which sports sentences are there. All of them are from sports only. So for all the sentences we are filling it, we are filling the frequency table, right? So we can see that in the first sentence was a great game. So a great game, all of them are one, rest of the words are zero. Similarly, the next one was very clean match. So very clean match is one. And similarly the D4 sentence, so it is a clean but forgettable game. So a clean but forgettable game. All the values have been one here. So here match has also been written as one, but match is not there uh, in this fourth sentence. So we can say that this will be zero. Yeah, I will make it 0 right now. 1 second. So for the match, it is 0. So you have these 5 words in the D4. We have 3 and 3 words for D1 and D3. So then you have to calculate what is the frequency of each word. A is coming twice. Great is coming once. Similarly, for all the other things, it will be calculated. Match is also one. Now, if you do the summation of all these numbers, it will be 2 plus 1 plus 2, it is 5, 2 plus 1, 1, 1, 1. So this is 11. So this is correct. So the summation is 11. And yeah, frequency 11 now. So why this was required? Because we have to keep the values in the denominator, right? And so this was a formula that you have to do this thing. Why 2 plus 1 is being done here? Can anyone tell me? Why not just 2? Why not we are keeping the value as 2 by 11 in this first case? Because 2 is the number here and 11 is the number as the sum. But we are using this formula 2 plus 1 upon 11 plus 14. Why? Quickly, anyone? हाँ जी बताओ जी. Why are we using this 2 plus 1 and then 11 plus 14 in the denominator instead of 2 by 11?
Sir,
हाँ जी. Couldn't hear you. Quickly. Can you please repeat? Or maybe write it in the chat box. Quick response will be appreciated. As we discussed, it is my Laplace smoothing, right? So if we recall this one, recall this Laplace smoothing formula, you could see that it was n plus alpha upon n plus alpha into k. Here k was 14 because we had 14 features. Alpha is equal to 1. So n plus 1 upon n plus 14 was done, right? So that's why you can see here my formula is n plus 1, 2 plus 1 upon 11 plus 14. Similarly, it is 1 plus 1 plus over 11 plus 14. Similarly, here it will be 1 plus 1 upon 11 plus 14. So all of these things will be calculated, right? And 2 by 25 is equal to, it will be 0.08. So yeah, obviously now if you solve all of this, you will get all the values, and we have got the probability of each word, right? And similarly, if you will do this thing for the politics, you will take the sentence number 2 and sentence number 5 from that uh, table. So this is how you will be filling all the values, and here it will be +1 and +14 again, and you will be getting the values as a total, as total is 9, right? So it will be 9 plus 14 in the denominator. So this is how you can solve it. But then we wanted to do some prediction, and we wanted to do it for this sentence, a very close game, right? A very close game. So let's look at that. So the sentence is a very close game. If you solve it for the sports, you will be using the values that we have already calculated. A in sports, very in sports, close, game in sports. So all of them will be taking the values from the table that we have solved for the likelihood. And this is my prior probability of zero point 0.6. So the answer is coming out to be 2.76 into 10 to the power minus 5. Similarly, for the politics, you will be doing the same thing. You will be calculating all the likelihood values for the politics, and you have got it in the last slide. So you are getting the value as this. So now, obviously, probability, this one is greater than this one. Uh, Easily it is visible. So my sentence is labeled as sports. Is this thing clear? Is this example clear? Quickly tell me. If you have any doubt in this, you can ask. We are just taking the values. This is my probability column from where the values will be taken for each word, and this is my probability column for the sports from where all the values will be taken. Is this thing clear? How to calculate all these things and get the answer? Should I move ahead? Okay. So naive-Bayes classifier has three types: multinomial naive-Bayes classifier, Bernoulli, and Gaussian. So we will be looking into all those three, and let's look into the multinomial first. So multinomial, obviously the word multinomial means two or more variables. So the naive-Bayes algorithm for multinomially distributed data is called multinomial naive-Bayes classifier, and this distribution is probability distribution using the experiments with two or more variables. Okay, so it is suitable for the classification with discrete features. Example, word counts for the text classification. The multinomial distribution normally requires integer feature counts. However, in practice, you will be using TF-IDF. So if you remember, we have already worked with the frequency table, right? So we have solved the frequency table. So this was my frequency, right? So instead of this frequency table, if I replace it with the TF-IDF value, so if I replace this particular column, this frequency column, with TF-IDF, and then do all the solving of mathematics and everything, this will be multinomial. Okay, so because there were multiple variables, and we are using, instead of term frequency table, so this is term frequency, right? This is frequency, this is term frequency value. But then if I want to replace this value with TF-IDF, it will be called multinomial naive-Bayes classifier. Am I clear? Similarly, the Bernoulli means that the naive-Bayes training and classification for data, it is distributed to multivariate Bernoulli distribution. But then Bernoulli means Boolean, right? So it can be used for binary valued variables. And this class requires the samples to be represented as a binary feature vector. So this binary feature vector means, I will clear the ink from here, 1 second. So if you clear, I mean, I mean here that, so if even if the sum was 2, if you replace it with only 1, so only you have to tell the presence, it is there or not. It will be 1, this will be 1. So only the presence has to be told. So if you are keeping the values as 1 and 0, only 1 or 0, frequency count as a total does not matter. Even it is 3, if it is 2, you have to keep it as 1, and accordingly you have to do the sum. So here the sum will be affected, and it will be 8 here, right? So now using the value of 8 as a total and frequency as 111 or 000, then this is called your Bernoulli-Navier classifier. So this was the logic behind this. And the third one is the Gaussian naive-Bayes classifier. In this case, the feature variables are continuous, uh, and it is not possible to compute the likelihood for each feature. So you are not able to get the value for each feature because they are continuous in range. It is a continuous range, and this version that deals with the continuous features, it is called the Gaussian naive-Bayes classifier. In this, we if you focus on the diagram of the right hand side, you will see that there are two distributions here, the red distribution and the blue distribution. But then if you want to get the value of x, you have to check that where it is intersecting at this point and this point. So the z score will be calculated, right? So the z score will be x minus mu upon sigma. So x minus mu of a divided by sigma of a. This is the z score of x from class A. And similarly for class B, it will be x minus mu beta upon sigma beta. So this is how we will be getting the value of z scores. And in particular, probability of observing any feature value c for feature xj given a class label as yi, the formula will be this. So this is similar to your z distribution probability formula. I hope that you can recall that. So I mean, it is easy to understand here. Mu xj denotes mean of xj feature values labeled as yi, right? And this sigma xjyi is the standard deviation of xj feature labeled as yi. So there are two things here. There is this sigma, there is this mu. So using these values, we can easily solve everything. uh, so that's all about Gaussian. Now let's look into this numerical. This is the last numerical of this naive-Bayes classification. Consider the following training set. uh, you have to tell that if you want to play golf or not, yes or no. You have only two variables here, temperature and humidity, but the features are continuous in this case instead of categorical. Now we are having the continuous values. We have the values instead of that temperature high, medium, low, or maybe humidity high, low. So we are not having those kind of classes, but now we have the numbers here. So we have to solve this numerical playing with the numbers, right? And using this Gaussian naive-Bayes classifier technique, no, because we have the continuous values, right? You have to play with the mu and sigma. Using the Gaussian naive-Bayes classifier, classify that weather on a day when temperature is 66 and humidity is 90. So temperature is 66 and humidity is 90. If you want to play golf or not, right? So you have this table in front of you. You have different values and you have to do the prediction for 66 and 90. So let's look into it how we will do it. So the training phase says that first I have to calculate the prior probability. Prior probability of yes is 9 by 14 because 9 times it is uh, yes and 5 times it is no. So 9 by 14 and 5 by 14 are the prior probabilities. Now I will be looking into the what we say log, like this is my likelihood table, right? And in this we have yes with different features, and no with different features, and for all of them you will be calculating the mu and sigma, right? So mu and sigma for the yes in temperature, mu and sigma for the no in temperature. Similarly, yes and no humidity, mu and sigma will be calculated. So we will have these values, four values here and four values here, and we will play with them to get the answer. So now question was that you have this T as 66 and humidity as 90, and you have to take the decision yes or no, right? So now let's see for the probability T equal to 66, yes. If you put the formula, you will have the values of as 0.034, and for no you have the value of 0.0279. Similarly, for these two values have come. So now if you say that you want to calculate the probability of yes and no, so this is yes, this is no. For that, obviously, P yes, PT yes, PH yes. So these three values will be multiplied 9 by 14 into these two, and this is the final answer for yes, and this is the final answer for no. Obviously, here here our value of yes is greater than that value of no, so we can play the golf. So I hope this is very easy to understand. I mean, we are breaking this formula. You can see here the formula is same that we were using earlier. Initially, you have to give the prior probability, and then you will have to give the value of PT yes, PH yes, and PT no, PH no. So all these values have to be given. We have already calculated them above, and directly using those values, we can make the call that whichever number comes up as a greater one, that will be the answer. So is this numerical clear? Anji, quickly tell me.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm switching the screen now to the next topic. Naive-Bayes classification is over. Okay, so we have just completed neighbors classification. Now we will be starting with the k nearest neighbor algorithm, and we still have 20 minutes to go. So I think the introduction will be complete for k nearest neighbor. So k nearest neighbor is another classification algorithm after the neighbors classification. Neighbors classification had its drawbacks and advantages, but now we will be looking into the next type of classification model called k nearest neighbor. Let's start. So k-nearest neighbor, it is a instance-based or the memory-based supervised model. So one thing to remember, k-nearest neighbor is a supervised learning algorithm, right? So this supervised learning models are those in which we know the target value. Okay, so here the instance-based learning or the memory-based learning means that it is a family of the learning algorithms that instead of performing the explicit generalization in the training phase, compares new problem instance with the instances that has already been seen in training and are in memory. So it is called instance based because it constructs the hypothesis directly from the training instances themselves. The computation is postponed until a new instance is observed. These algorithms are sometimes referred to as lazy. So if you look into this slide very carefully, there is nowhere written that we will be doing any kind of training. The training of the model is not being done here. It's just that you keep the record of all the things, right? You whenever you are given something new, you go and compare it with each of them. So if it is similar to something, if it is similar to the first one or the second one, the third one, so that kind of decision will be made. So I mean, from this first slide itself, I know that I have to keep lot of memory for me available. Why? Because we have to save everything. It is memory based model. Full data set will be required at every point of time while doing the predictions, and until and unless something comes up, uh, so the last point, the competition is postponed until a new instance is observed. These algorithms are sometimes referred to as lazy. So your competition will be very slow until the new instance is observed. So whenever the new row comes up, this whenever something new comes up, then only it works. And it means that something has to be there for the similar kind, then only the decision can be made. So let's look into this. So what is this KNN? KNN is k nearest neighbor. It is based on the fact that the similar objects lie in the close proximity. So it assumes that there is the similarity between the values near me. So it is kind of making the groupism here. So these red points, the green points, and the blue points have been classified into three classes here just by looking at the distance among them. Kind of it is trying to make the clusters out of it. So let's read this one. The figure illustrates that the objects of the same class lie close to each other. Hence, a new test case can be compared with k closest training examples in the dataset. So what has been done here is that whenever whenever some new point comes up, let's say this point is the test point. So what it will do is based on the k value, let's say for instance k equal to 5, it will look at the 5 neighbors. It will look at this one, this one, this one, this one, and maybe this one. So it will look at 5 neighbors which are closest to it, and it will say कि भाई मेरे पड़ोसी ऐसे हैं तो मैं भी ऐसे ही होऊंगा, right? So whatever the majority says, it says that this is my type. Okay, so that's how it makes the decision. Just on the basis of similarity, on whichever side it is, wherever it is close, it says that that's my class. So now we will be doing this discussion about how to decide the value of k. But before that, we will look into the classification and regression. So k nearest neighbor, KNN, it can be used for both of them, classification and regression. And in KNN classification, the output is the class membership. I mean, we saw on the last slide that it will be looking at the neighbors and it will decide that in which class I belong to. So an object is classified by a plurality vote of its neighbors, with the object being assigned to the class most common uh, in its k nearest neighbor. So let's say that um, in this case k equal to 1. If my k is equal to 1, the object will simply assign to the class, uh, I mean just by looking at the single nearest neighbor, right? So it means that voting hoegi, and whatever number comes up, let's say that 5 times voting hui, it checked for the 5 neighbors, and out of 5 of them, 3 said that you belong to class 1 and 2 out of them told that you belong to class 2. So obviously my majority says the answer is 1. So it will, the sixth component, the sixth value that will come for classification, it will be classified into class 1 because the majority said that it is 1. uh, and for k nearest neighbor for the regression, uh, I mean the value is average, right? So whatever value is given 5 times, you will be doing the average of it, and that will be the value in the k nearest neighbor regression. So now how does this work? It works by doing something. First of all, you have to decide that what is the value of k. K is the number of nearest neighbors, so you have to determine the parameter k, and this k can be decided on various factors and techniques, so we will look into that later on. But for now, the first point is that we should know the value of k. Then calculate the distance between the query instance and all the training samples. So whatever the query point is and all the other points, so you have to check this k and find its distance from each of them. You have to find all the distances, all the points have to be checked for its distance. This is the point 2. Then you have to sort, I mean you have to compare, I mean you have done this, you have found all the distances, right? So the first point was to have a value of k in mind, but then whenever this new point comes up, you have to find distance. Every distance will be found, and then you will also have to sort it. Let's say the distance came out to be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, right? So these are the 10 distances that came up, and we have done the sorting. Now gather the category. uh I mean, obviously it is also written that determine the nearest neighbor based on the kth minimum distance. Yeah, so let's say that there are k equal to 3. So you can pick the first 3 things that okay, these 3 are near to me. If k was equal to 3, we will be looking at the first 3 neighbors which are closest to me. So these are the first 3 values 1 2 3 that are coming for me. Gather the category y of the nearest neighbors. So let's say categories were 1 1 0. So these were the 3 categories, right? So these are the category, and use the simple majority of the category and take the decision. So 110 means that the output should be 1. So for this class that we were looking into, this has been classified into the 1 category based on its k equal to 3. 3 neighbors were checked, and all 3 neighbors had their category as 110. Majority was 1. So that's why we said that it is class 1. So now for classification, k must be set as a even number so as to avoid the tie during majority. So it should, this statement should be k should be odd number, not the even number. I will make this change. So when we are doing the classification, we need the majority, right? And let's say that there are 4 k is equal to 4, then two of them is saying 1 is the output, two of them is saying uh, 0 is the output, then there will be tie, right? Two out of them are saying 0, two out of them are saying 1. So it should not be even number. In fact, it should be odd number. K should be odd always in classification. Uh, so that's how we make the decision in k nearest neighbor for classification. Now, how to decide the value of k? Uh, in KNN, find the value of k. Finding the value of k is very crucial. A small value of k means that the noise will have a higher influence on the result, and a very large value will make computationally expensive. So, what does this point mean? We say that, let's say we had these multiple points, right? And when we are saying that k is equal to very small, let's say bhai ke chalo ye wale point ka check karna tha, and we are keeping k equal to 1, it is very small, right? If I keep k equal to 1, k is a small number, it is odd number, uh, and we have to make the things, we have to do the prediction. So why are we saying that having a small number of k will have a higher influence from the noise? It means that it might be the case that this is a noisy point, this is the, what we say, this is wrong, maybe some point that I should have not considered, but then I have to consider it if my k is equal to 1. If I had multiple k, let's say k equal to 3, then I would have considered this one also, and the third one also. But if my k is equal to 1 is there, then only this pair will be calculated. And based on the noisy data, we are making the call, okay, bhai, what should be the class of this instance, this query image, or maybe query data. So this noisy point should not interfere or make the biasness in the prediction. So that's why we should not keep the k as very small value. It should be maybe 3 or 5. Uh, so let's see that how does this affect us. So if we choose our k is equal to 1, then our algorithm behaves as overfitting, and it gives a non-smooth decision surface. And as the k increases, our decision surface gets smoother. And if we choose k as very large, algorithm behaves as underfitting, and it gives a smooth decision. Obviously, uh, when we are when we are using k equal to 1, so every time we are calculating the distance between this one, then this one, so it is checking one by one, and you have to do lots of computation, and lots of curves will be added to the model. But if you have a lot of k, let's say you are keeping the k equal to maybe 50, so you are keeping all the points in the data set, and you are generalizing कि भाई चलो सब चलता है. The way we were saying that we are just fitting a straight line between these points, and we did not care about that how does this model fit. We just put a straight line there, and we said that okay, every point is being generalized on this straight line. So this was underfitting, and in the previous case that we had seen in the initial lectures. But then I mean, in this case, if we have a very large k value, then again we are doing the same thing. So having a large value of k or putting a straight line in this data set, uh, they are both underfitting, right? So that's why we are saying that if we have a very high value of k, um, it will it will be making our model as underfit, and everything becomes one class. सबको वो एक ही class में बोल देगा, and which is the majority class in our data set. So k should be chosen wisely, in which we would say that it should not overfit or it should not underfit. So how it should be done? It is called this method is called cross validation error, right? And this one, let's see how it works. So we can tune the number of k in KNN and plot with respect to the cross validation error. So following approaches are used. So one method is that an odd number, uh, in case of classification, right? You have to keep a odd number. Then another simple approach to select k is you can use the square root of n. Let's say there were maybe 20 points. Then if you do the square root of 20, it will be 4 point something, right? So you can keep the k and n maybe 5 or 3. near to square root of that number in case of classification, because you will have to also take care that it should not be even number. So if it is 4 point, maybe square root of 20 is, it is I think around 4.4. So 4.44, something like that it is there. But then I will take the I will take the side of 5 rather than 3. So I will take k equal to 5 in that case if there are 20 points. Then the best approach is to plot the mean square error in labeling the prediction, and you will be choosing the first value for which the error rate is minimum. So in this case, you have the nearest neighbors in the power of this 10 to the power 0, 10 to the power 1, 10 to the power 2. It means that it is 10, it is 100. So by the time you reach here, you have nearest neighbors as 100. At this point, you have 10. At this point, it is 0. So it should be around 3 here. So it is 3. This is 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like that. But now we are hitting the bottom point in terms of classification error at this point, at this particular point, at this point where I am making X. So this is my bottom point, right? Because it has the lowest error around 0.13. So I will use a k equal to 3 in this case. But then if my error looks like not like this, but maybe like this, let's say it is coming out to be this one, and then you stay at this point, then you again go up. So what will be the value of k in this point? So in this case, obviously you can take this point, the first time you are hitting the bottom point, not not this point. I mean, obviously you can take this point because this one is also giving the lowest error, but this one is giving me the lowest error first time. I mean, it should be the value should be selected whenever the first value for which the error is minimum comes up. So whenever it hits the bottom point first time, even if it is hitting it again, maybe it is hitting again at this point, and then you can say that, okay, at this point also the error is minimum, at this point also the error is minimum, at this point also the error is minimum. Let's say that these are the three categories. These are the 3 points where you can say कि भाई मेरे को minimum error मिल रहा है, right? So this is my minimum error. But then I will go with the one. Why? Because of this statement. So that's the major thing that I wanted you to remember, that whenever the lowest error comes up first time, whenever the first instance is there, you have to choose that thing. So moving ahead. So these are the distance metrics. We have been discussing that you have to calculate the distance of the nearest neighbors. Now we are looking at the formulas. Uh, I mean, you have to use the different formulas to get the distance, right? So there is this Minkowski, Manhattan, and Euclidean distance. As you see clearly, I mean, as you can see in this table, this formula, if I put value of m equal to 1, it is my Manhattan distance. And if my m is equal to 2 in this particular formula, then my Euclidean distance comes up. So Minkowski distance is kind of the base formula for Manhattan and Euclidean. For m equal to 1, my Minkowski will turn into Manhattan distance or the city block distance. For m equal to 2, my distance will be Euclidean. So the formula is same. There are other distances also, Canberra distance and this Zhuknovsky coefficient distance. So you can use this different formulas and get the values. But now distance matrix for categorical features. So this one was for continuous variables. You can get the values in points also. You can get these values as distance points out of these 5 coefficients, 5 different distance formulas. But this is how we calculate it for the categorical features. We have these 5: cosine distance, Taney-Method coefficient, Jaccard distance, Sorensen, Dice coefficient, and Hamming distance. So these are the 5 formulas where they will give you the categorical distance, right? And I mean, we will look into this from an example point of view, and we have still 2 minutes to go. I will try to wrap up this numerical within 2 minutes. So consider this bag of words representation. So this is what I have. Let's say we have these 3 sentences. I think, therefore I am. Can you think? And I don't think, therefore I don't know who I am. So considering everything, the bag of words representation has been done. I is coming twice in the first sentence, thrice in the third sentence, and zero as the in the second sentence, and everything has been filled up. Now you can calculate the cosine distance by filling up the values. Tangent meter distance can be calculated by filling up all the values whatever are there. So in this uh, values in the formula, in these formulas, xik is the ith instance of the variable k. So you have to decode this thing, that whenever it is there xik, it is the ith instance of the variable k, and p here are the total number of features in the formula. So you have to take care of those things. I mean, here d12 means one-th instance in the second variable, in the second instance. So yeah, ith instance of the variable k. So yeah, it is the first instance of the variable 2. So based on that, all the values have been substituted and it has been calculated. Jaccard and Dice coefficient, all of those values have been calculated, and that's how you calculate all the distance matrix. This numerical is very small numerical. It is 1 or 2 slides. I will cover it right now. Let's finish. Let's get this done right now. So we have the data from the questionnaire. We have this data set where we have the x1, the acid durability in seconds, x2 strength, kg per square meter, and this is my classification of bad or good. So these are the values. These are the initial values in the data set. Now I have to do the prediction for x1 equal to 3 and 7. So 3 should be this value, 7 should be this one, and I have to tell but it is good or bad. Okay, so this is how I should do this. I should do this thing, and let's do it for KNN using KNN. So first of all, we will determine the parameter. K should be equal to 3, because the numbers are also very less. The data set is small, but then we can't use K equal to 1. So generally we take K equal to 3. Now calculate the distance between the query instance and the all the training samples. So we will be calculating all the distances. We have to do it for 3 comma 7. That's our query. So 3 comma 7 is being calculating being calculated here. So every time you will see right hand side is 3 in this case and 7 in this case. The distances are being calculated. The distances are coming out to be 16, 25, 9 and 13. Okay, so these are the distances, square distance to query instance 3 comma 7. Now you have to sort all the distances. Obviously, if you sort it, the ranking is 1 2 3 4 for 9, 13, 16 and 20, 25, 1 2 3 4. And is it included in 3 nearest neighbor? You have to calculate it. You have to see that which one is the top 3. So 4 will be discarded, this no will be discarded, all of them are saying yes. So it has to be a yes, right? For me, I mean, I have to consider these yes values, and only the yes values, not the no value. So only these 3 values will be taken, and out of these the majority is saying that it is good. 2 out of 3 is saying good, so 3 comma 7 should be good. So this was these are the 4 steps. Earlier, I mean, this was the question, we had to solve it for 3 comma 7. Earlier we took the k value of 3, then we calculate distance and we have sorted it. And after sorting it, because k was equal to 3, we are taking the first 3 values. And for first 3 values, you will see in the data set that it is having a bad, good, good. These are the 3 things that are being the classes for them. And then we took the best value out of that. 2 out of 3 was good. So my answer is good in this case. So 3 comma 7 is good. So we will look into the advantages of KNN in the next class. Thank you. I am stopping the share and I am ending the class right now.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, okay. Okay, then you people can leave and continue with the next class.